This week has seen the South African Parliament elect Cyril Ramaphosa as president, and in Malawi, the main opposition candidate Lazarus Chakwera is in a slight lead in the polls as tallying continues. This is Africa Focus. Here's a peek of the stories set in store today.
Coming back home, Algerian citizens return to the country after the fall of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. Open for business, faced with competition, the port of Abidjan transforms. Joining in the struggle, Sudanese graffiti artists etched their names on the revolution.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
At least 8 members of a Ugandan football team and their fans died and 15 more are missing after a boat they were traveling in capsized on Lake Albert, police said Monday. The boat was traveling between 2 fishing villages in the west of the country when it capsized, with police attributing the accident to overloading and bad weather. In December 2016, at least 30 members of a football team and their fans drowned while their boat capsized on Lake Albert during a party. In 2014, at least 251 refugees from Democratic Republic of Congo drowned on the lake while returning home from Uganda. Such accidents are common in Africa's Great Lakes region, where boats, which are often the only form of transportation, are overcrowded and poorly maintained. A few people know how to swim.
Government and opposition leaders in the Democratic Republic of Congo must strive to find a bipartisan solution to the Ebola outbreak, as ongoing violence in the country gives the virus an advantage, the chief of the World Health Organization said on Monday. Speaking at the World Health Assembly in Geneva, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom said the spread of the disease should not be politicized. The world's second biggest Ebola outbreak has killed more than 1,000 people in parts of eastern DRC plagued by militia violence. Distrust by local residents has further hampered the response, with health workers and centers repeatedly attacked. So far, 1,074 people have been killed, out of a total 1,604 confirmed or probable cases, according to the health ministry.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma's lawyer argued on Monday that Zuma has been treated with bias in the application for a permanent stay of prosecution from corruption charges relating to $2.2 billion arms deal. Zuma, who made his 5th court appearance since the charges were reinstated, faces 16 charges of fraud, racketeering and money laundering. The charges are related to a deal to buy 30 billion rands worth of European military hardware for South Africa's armed forces in the late 1990s. The 77-year-old Zuma, whose 9 years in power were marked by economic stagnation and credit rating downgrades, has previously said he is the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt. The case is a rare example of an African leader being held to account for his actions. Zuma has denied any wrongdoing.
Polls opened on Tuesday morning as Malawians stood in line to cast their votes in the country's general election, as seen as a tough test for President Peter Mutharika and his governing Democratic Progressive Party. Mutharika is under pressure from rivals including the Deputy President Salos Chilim and former pastor Lazarus Chakwera, who leads the official opposition group, the Malawi Congress Party. Malawi is heavily reliant on foreign aid and frequently experiences severe droughts, which threaten the lives of thousands through famine. 78-year-old Mutharika, a former law professor, has overseen infrastructural improvements and a sharp reduction in inflation in his first 5-year term, but critics accuse him of corruption and cronyism. 6.8 million registered voters are expected to vote for the president, parliament and ward councillors.
Flashing the victory sign and chanting revolutionary slogans, Sudanese protesters camped outside the military headquarters are determined to install civilian rule, even as talks between the leaders and army generals have faltered. Thousands of men and women have held an around-the-clock sit-in at the site since April 6, initially to seek the military support on toppling long-time autocrat Omar al-Bashir and later to remove the generals who seized power after his ouster. Although the number of protesters has dwindled during the day since the beginning of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, crowds swell at night when demonstrators gather after breaking the dawn to dusk fast. But more than a month since Bashir was overthrown, protest leaders have been unable to reach a deal with the military on forming a new governing body that will replace the generals.
Ghana's all-time leading goal scorer, Asamoah Gyan, announced his international retirement on Monday, a month before the start of the African Nations Cup. The news came shortly after he was removed as the national team's captain. The striker has not featured for the side since September 2017 after persistent injury problems and has also battled for game time with his Turkish club. The 33-year-old netted 51 goals in 106 international appearances, both Ghana's national team records, which include scoring at 6 consecutive Nation Cups finals, as well as 3 World Cups between 2006 and 2014. Gyan's 6 World Cup goals is the most by an African player.
For weeks, expatriate Algerians have been streaming back to the country to play their part in the historic changes sweeping across the country, flying in from Europe, the Gulf and North America. Some have used the annual leave or taken time off work to take part in the demonstrations following President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's resignation. Protesters are now pressing on with calls for sweeping reforms and the departure of key figures in the former president's regime.
Protesters say they want to see the resignations of the remaining powerful group, including Senate Speaker Abdelkader Ben Salah, head of the Constitutional Council Taib Belaiz, and the Prime Minister Nourdine Bedoui. Nazir Nait, who has lived in London for the past 2 years, took part in several demonstrations organized by Algerians in the British capital, but also returned home to play a role in the protest on the ground.
I came to Algiers to take part in this revolution that is happening right now, which looks like nothing I've seen elsewhere, in other countries or in other similar situations.
Returnees say they are surprised by the country's newfound freedom of speech and the strong presence of women at the vast, largely peaceful marches.
I have dreamed of this revolution. I have been dreaming for 20 to 25 years. I knew that one day, the day will come because it's that the dialectics of things. When we always push people towards an impasse, there's a day when they revolt.
Born in Algiers, Cassie studied marine biology, but like many Algerians, left the country when it plunged in the early 90s into an unending civil war that left at least 200,000 people dead.
There was no other option but to come to Algeria to be amongst everyone. You can see Algerians coming in the hundreds and thousands to come for one main goal, for one purpose, which is the betterment of the country and the betterment of the nation. But we had to come to Algeria along with my family.
Some of them say that they actually took unpaid leave from their employers from abroad to take part in what they term as historic marches. Former trade unionist Salah Alali, who also sought refuge in Britain in the 90s, took an extra week of holiday without pay to be able to head home.
There was no other option but to come to Algeria to be amongst everyone. We have, like all over the world at the moment, you can see Algerians coming out in their hundreds and thousands to try and come for one main goal and one purpose is the betterment of the country and the betterment of the nation, and so that people's voices are heard, as you can see. But we had to come to Algeria along with my mum, my family, my cousins, my uncles.
Their simple message to those in power is that the revolution has to end with the current regime's departure so that they too can come back home and invest in their country.
The port of Abidjan has embarked on a vast modernization project of its facilities to maintain its position. With these developments, the facility aims at competing with those of Tangier in Morocco and Durban in South Africa. The port's expansion is set to transform Abidjan into a major maritime hub for the West African region.
This is Ivory Coast's lifeline as it accounts for 90% of the country's foreign trade. Currently in construction, they hope to increase the port's capacity.
Work in progress will allow the port of Abidjan to accommodate ships of 16 meters of water to 1.
The infrastructure phase will be completed by September 2019, but the superstructures and equipment will be ready no later than July-September 2020.
2020.
The port is expected to commission a second terminal of 1,200 meters of quay with 18 meters of depth, the only one of its depth on the West African coast. It will be able to accommodate ships transporting 10,000 containers against 3,500 previously. In addition, the port, which is in a lagoon, completed the widening and deepening of the channel of Verdi, which connects it to the sea at a cost of 230 million euros in February. This arrangement will allow the passage of vessels without length limitation, as opposed to the 250 meters maximum length before.
According to our contract, construction will be completed in August 2019.
A few months earlier, on 15 March 2018, the port authorities welcomed Grand Abidjan, an imposing freighter flying the Italian flag of the Grimaldi company, capable of transporting up to 5,500 vehicles for the inauguration of the new Ro-Ro wharf. In 2018, traffic at the port of Abidjan increased by 7.2% to more than 24 million tons.
After 2011, as part of the recovery of the Ivorian economy and the modernization of infrastructure, including port, a vast program of rehabilitation of infrastructure and improvement of traffic areas and management of the congestion was undertaken. It is a vast program for a total cost of about 850 million CFA francs.
The management of the new port infrastructures will be done in the context of public-private partnership in the form of concession. In 2018, the Chinese launched 3 major projects: the rehabilitation and development of the electricity network, the construction of the Tiebizu-Bouake motorway, and the construction of the 4th bridge in Abidjan, among other infrastructural projects.
Coming up after the break.
Eyeing new fame, popular Malian band reunites after 50 years out of the limelight.
We're about to take a water break. Don't touch that dial. Keep it switched. Welcome back to Africa Focus. With the fall of veteran leader Omar al-Bashir, Sudan's long-stifled graffiti artists are finally able to express their art, painting the country's revolution in murals and portraits across Khartoum's walls, inspired by the months-long protest movement that finally toppled Bashir on the 11th of April. Several artists are using the walls near the army headquarters as a canvas.
The artists adorned the walls of Khartoum with their memories of the protest, painting faces of the protesters and those killed as the events unfolded. The project aims to construct a large painted cloth, which is then to be hung all over the walls of the city, bearing not only paintings of the ongoing protests, but also the signatures of all those who are present since protesters moved to camp in front of the Defense Ministry on April 6. The volunteer responsible for collecting signatures, Sarah Ahmed, says that 1 million signatures are expected to find their way to the cloth.
Finally, we can say that justice has been done for our revolution. Among our very good work is our mural, which will hopefully enter the records, along with the amount of paintings done by the artists, which is very beautiful work. We have spaces for signatures, signatures for the revolutionaries, and signatures for everyone that was present here with us since the 6th of April until the moment we finished working on the mural. For us, it's like the attendance of the revolution. We anticipate or approximately expect to have around 1 million signatures.
For artist Aya Abdel Rahim, the project is an attempt to document the events for generations to come.
This is documentation. Documentation of history, documentation of the revolution, and documentation of Sudan. We're documenting the history of previous generations, documenting the history of the martyrs who died, and documenting the history as fine artists.
Organizers hope their adorned cloth would make it to the Guinness World Records.
I believe that the space used by fine artists in Sudan during the revolution will turn into a tourist attraction that is registered by the Ministry of Tourism, just like other locations, Berlin Wall and other places in Europe that have seen conflict. Fine art is the real mark that has translated all phenomena of the revolution in all shapes, as well as all the inner emotions of people. This can become a tourist site, not just for revolution, but also for tourism, and the memories it holds therein.
Bashir was removed by the military on April 11 after months of demonstrations against his 30-year rule. He is also wanted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague for war crimes of the conflict in Sudan's Darfur region.
We assist the protesters with our weapon, which is the painting brush and color. That is what we can participate with, what we can use to express our feelings and involvement with the Sudanese people.
Protesters and activists have been negotiating with the Transitional Military Council, TMC, to form a joint civilian-military body to oversee a transition.
In the middle of the Cold War in the 60s, a group of 7 young Malians left for Havana, studying music for 7 years. They formed a band, Las Marivales de Mali, to play their own composition using Cuban musical forms and addressing contemporary African issues. They returned to the country in the 1970s, hoping for concerts' success and stardom, which proved elusive. Now, Bonkana Maiga, the sole surviving member of the band, is hoping to bring the group back to life.
After 50 years out of the limelight, one of the bands who pioneered mixing Cuban and West African beats is finally back on stage. La Maravilla de Mali came together in the 1960s during the height of the Cold War, when 7 young musicians from Mali were sent to Havana by their government to study music.
Muy extraño porque
There, I learned how to arrange music and play with the Cuban musicians. You learn Mozart, Chopin, Beethoven, Bach in school, but you learn Cuban music on the streets with the musicians. That is where I learned to arrange music.
porque son 10 años que pasamos en Cuba.
Their first record was a huge hit back in Mali, and the band's track, Rendes vos Chez Fatimata, was played across the African continent.
Empezó la influencia de la música cubana.
The Cuban music began to influence me. So that's how it started. And as someone who teaches and arranges music, I can see the difference that influence had on us and the relationship between African and Cuban music.
Entre la música africana y la música cubana.
But the group disappeared following a coup in Cuba, and the fame they hoped for back in Mali also never came. At a recent show at the Barbican Centre in London, the ensemble received a rapturous welcome, playing from their new record Africa Mia.
I'd already made a few tracks using Mandinka music, but with Cuban rhythms, and they worked well. So I wanted to join him, and I believe we've ended up with something really great.
While the Malian-Cuban band now features only one of the regional band members, Bonsana Maiga, the group is generating interest, especially as the new lineup features one of Africa's best-selling singers, Mori Kante. The group's blending of Cuban and African beats is attracting attention because of the history of Cuban music, which has been influenced by the rhythms and songs brought over by West African slaves.
I've worked with lots of musicians in my life, and I've always exchanged my music with different other styles of music. It's always worked for me, and this time it really works.
La Maravilla de Mali hopes its new album and the tour it's currently on will help to revive an ensemble forgotten for half a century. The band's story is also being turned into a film.
Thank you very much. The Rainbow Nation has consistently been ranked as having one of the highest crime rates anywhere in the world. In 2017, the picturesque city of Cape Town recorded almost 2,500 killings. Some of the most affected are young people. However, a community sports project is helping young people deal with the difficulties of their everyday lives through the game of softball.
But while other parts of the area are renowned for violence and drugs, the residents of Lavender Hill are determined to put their neighborhood on the map for sports instead. Softball was started as an extracurricular activity that grew in popularity and led to the formation of the Lavender Hill Softball Club in 2012. The sport originated in Chicago in the late 1800s and is relatively new to South Africa. Marlene Peterson attended Lavender Hill High School and still lives a couple streets away. She serves as both the coach and chairperson of the team that competes at the highest club level.
I think if there wasn't softball in the area, we probably wouldn't have the kids today. Another achievement that the club have, we've just recently 2 of the matriculants that matriculated. We got them into UWC. And most of the girls, we have about 5 or 6 that's matric this year, and last year they started talking and saying, what are they going to do? We asked them what career they're going to go, and they say, look, they don't know because their mothers and fathers don't have money to send them to college and stuff, so what are they going to do?
5 of a team of 9 have been selected to represent the Western Cape region. 3 of those 5 represent South Africa's under-19 team. 2 players are also part of South Africa's senior team. This softball club is about more than sports. The girls are mentored by their coaches, who help them make critical decisions about their lives off the pitch.
Like last year and this year, we definitely became closer as a family on and off the field. And running onto the field with them today is very important because we're going to need to be with each other all the time. The strength has to be there, the momentum, everything.
Athleticism is taken very seriously, and the girls can often be found training late into the evening on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Games are played on weekends. Lavender Hills Super League side currently sits at second in a mixed league, which means that Lavender Hills 14 to 19-year-olds often play against women more than twice their age. Despite going down 4-2 against a mixed team called the Falcons, the Lavender Hill players and their fans still danced for joy.
Inspiration they are. You know, we all know the circumstances of Lavender Hill, and to see these girls come out every week and they come and they give it their heart, they give it their all, they are such an inspiration for us all. And I have such high hopes for them and their future.
A communal sports ground is currently under development at Lavender Hill. Facilities will include rugby, hockey and softball pitches that meet international standards. The facilities will cater to 24 schools and various sports clubs. Peterson lists funding as a major challenge. Players are expected to pay their way for tournaments abroad, an expense most people from Lavender Hill cannot afford. But with softball featuring in the 2020 Olympics, Lavender Hill players hope it won't be insufficient funds that will stop them from hitting home runs on the world stage.
On Africa Focus, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. Remember, you can view this program along with a wide array of other programs on DSTV channel 268 and on Azon TV channel 138. On behalf of the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for keeping us company on this journey across the African continent. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.